Hello, welcome back. This is the Movie Husbands Oscar Post Show. This is strange because we usually open with like footage of like the movie we're reviewing. We don't do stuff like this.
Yeah. We're going very off notes today. We're gonna see if it works. People said that they like to hear us talk about stuff, so
we're talking.
This is us talking about stuff.
So
the Oscars ended 5 minutes ago.
Yes, we are downstairs. We are surprisingly. I'm not too tired. Are you tired?
We went out to a brunch where I had 2 espresso martinis and then I took a 2-hour nap. So I feel great.
We feel great. Usually we're very tired, but I think that's a great place to start because they upped the timing of this telecast an hour earlier. So it started at 7 p.m. instead of 8 p.m., which I thought was a fantastic decision.
Yeah, we all get to the point in the evening, I think, with the Oscars where we're on the East Coast, so this is probably something different if you're on the West Coast or somewhere else in the world, but we watch it and we're getting to like 11:05, 11:15, 11:30, and I start to think, God, I gotta be up at 6:45, and I start to count the minutes until the Oscars ends, and I love the Oscars. I like wait for them every year, and it's like the one night a year that we celebrate film, and even if I don't always agree with the Oscars or whatever, I always enjoy making like a day of the Oscars. I think moving it earlier, actually, it just redoes my perception of the show, and in that perception, I felt like it was a very well-paced show. It even was flirting with being ahead at a certain point. I think it ended like 6 minutes early.
Which was weird because when he started the show, Jimmy Kimmel said that they're 5 minutes behind. So to end 5 minutes early.
Yeah, totally. So anyway, I just to go with the show overall, it's funny because I don't find Jimmy Kimmel to be that funny or that entertaining of a guy, but I do think that he's a very good Oscars host. His Oscars seem to go without a hitch for most part, even though he was there for one of the most chaotic Oscars, the Moonlight La La Land saga, that whole thing that happened, right? But the way he handles it is so deft and he's so quick on his feet that he's actually able to move the show along very well as a host. And I actually think that's more important than being like a flat out hilarious host.
Yeah, I wrote some ideas down when I was going through the telecast, and that was one of them. I think his opening was a little bit of a mixed bag. There were some jokes that I thought landed and some that I thought fell flat. But that being said, I think he really thinks quickly on his feet. So the way that the audience responds to him, he has a quick reaction to in a good way. So I think he's just really seasoned at this, and I think that's what makes him great. He doesn't have to be amazing at it, but I think just him doing what he does is just fine enough. And I think he got better throughout the night. I think
agree.
The amount that they included him throughout and the little bits that they had were done very well.
I think there's always an abnormal amount of pressure and microscope attention on the opening monologue. I think every opening monologue for the past 20 years of the Oscars has had ups and downs. I can't think of a perfect one, frankly, but Kimmel usually keeps the show moving. And like you said, he really learns as the show goes and he's quick on his feet. So there was a point towards the end of the show where he started reading tweets, quote unquote, not a tweet, but a tweet from Donald Trump about how he was doing so far.
Which was literally live. I thought it was a joke.
It was literally live.
Real.
Yeah, and he turned that into a whole bit that was very, very funny. So I give him a lot of credit for being able to do that. Clearly the show is written, right? So they must have something, and they have these calculated moments that he comes out. So he must have looked at a bit and said, and decided to do that instead. So it's really interesting to see how the show morphs as he's going on and what's going on backstage.
Yeah, and I just love the hypocrisy of Donald Trump complaining about the Oscars but sitting there watching it. I think it was hilarious. It was a good point to bring it up.
Yeah, and he was like, why don't we give Oscars to the people that deserve them? Like who?
Anyways, so getting back to Jimmy Kimmel, there was a couple bits that I really liked. I thought the John Cena thing worked great because
that was great.
It was like referring to a past experience at the Oscars and then bringing that in, pulling it into costume design, which I thought was really great. But going from there, I loved the switch up for the acting nominees to bring it back to the old school style of having multiple previous winners come out, which I thought was just absolutely amazing. I'm so glad they brought this back because it's personal, it was emotional, it made me tear up, especially in the beginning. I think it was just because the introduction of it coming back was really emotional for me. I think just them having this personal conversation directly to the nominees and you saw them tearing up, just feeling like there was a level of appreciation that was deeper than just saying the names and seeing them on the screen. I thought Devonjoy Randolph's first win was absolutely stunning. It was a great way to start the show.
Absolutely. And for somebody who's been sweeping the entire season, she still seemed completely in awe of the way her life is in the past couple of months, which is just amazing to see in an Oscar winner. And I can't wait to see what she does next. Whatever you may think of the Holdovers film, I liked it. I didn't love it. but I think that she is extraordinary in it, and I hope that whenever somebody wins an Oscar that they go on to do really interesting work, so I hope that for her too. But she gave one of the best acceptance speeches of the night.
Yeah, and on this note of all the presenters, there's a couple of other moments that I thought were great. I love the moment with Forrest Whitaker talking to Coleman Domingo. I thought that was a very pleasant moment. And then him with his husband sitting next to him. It was just so sweet, and you could see him tearing up. It was so beautiful. And also the way Nick Cage praised Paul Giamatti's contact lens, I thought was very hilarious.
I absolutely love the whole thing of past Oscar winners praising current Oscar nominees. The only concern I had with it is they seem to only do that for nominees where people are very well known, people are part of like theater.
Yeah, it's the acting.
And I do think, yeah, I understand that, but I think they miss an opportunity to potentially do that with some other. For instance, what if 5 very renowned or celebrated sound engineers from the history of films came in and explained why each nominee deserved to be there for sound? That would have been a really interesting thing, and I think it would have brought the audience in, particularly the audience who isn't us, the people who watch the Oscars to find out the great films of the year instead of the people who have already seen them all throughout the year. It engages those people in why sound is important, because typically, if you're not that into film, you sit around waiting for the acting categories, right? You're like, okay, best sound, best cinematography, because not everybody is like us to be obsessed with film. So anyway, I think that's an interesting way to bring in a lot of audience members and make them excited about parts of film that they didn't know they could be excited about.
Yeah, or learn certain things about parts of film that they didn't know about.
It's also like the kind of upstairs downstairs divide of Hollywood. I still love that they did it, but I think that's just something that maybe they should consider.
You make a great point. They should expand that. Speaking on that note, the way that they acknowledge stunt coordinators and people who work in stunt work, I thought was really cool. However, it did feel slightly slight to me, like, oh, here we are acknowledging you, but you don't have a category of your own.
There's all this screaming that there should be a stunt category, so it's almost like them acknowledging that there should be, but not making one.
Yes.
Not making one yet. There probably will be one eventually.
That's what I think. I found it promising that something down the line is coming for that.
More goes into this than people realize. They have to make a full branch. That branch has to vote each year. The branch needs to be assembled. So this is a whole thing, according to Academy rules, that needs to be put together. They can't just like throw it on the telecast suddenly.
I'm just going to keep going through my notes here because they're in order of the telecast, but I do want to mention that I am really happy for The Boy and the Heron winning. Obviously, this is no shade against Spider-Verse. I absolutely love that movie, but it's just so nice to see Miyazaki winning here once again.
That goes to another point that I'll just make quickly about the Oscars this year, that they did a very good job spreading the wealth. So you had Poor Things winning, you had Oppenheimer winning, you had 2 different films that weren't awarded elsewhere winning screenplay awards. So I think they did a very good job of taking these particular things that are good about films and awarding them in those categories. So for instance, one of the big upsets was Zone of Interest winning sound over films that
you were jumping on the couch at that one. You were excited.
That was the jump off the couch moment of the night. All of the other films, especially Oppenheimer, have absolutely tremendous sound work. But I think when you're looking at that category, the Zone of Interest is conceptual sound. It's making, as we keep talking about, and as Glazer has talked about throughout his like kind of awards
Oscar campaign,
his awards campaign, is that there's the film that you see and there's the film that you hear. And in some ways, they're taking a very unconventional film. Like this type of film usually does not win a sound award, and awarding that conceptual idea of it. So I thought that was a really, really cool win. Like a very interesting upset.
The sound design is absolutely stunning in that movie.
Yeah, but at the same time, you could see how somebody could watch Oppenheimer and say that the sound was,
of course,
all-encompassing.
But it was really cool to see it win the award for that when you already know that Oppenheimer was going to win so many accolades of the night already.
I love that American Fiction, its sole award for the night was for screenplay. I think that movie has a fantastic screenplay. I think Cord Jefferson is a very unique talent. He has written some really terrific television series that he's been a part of. I've loved his work on TV. So to see that translate into film success, and now with him winning an Oscar, I think that will propel him even forward to get funding for his future features, which makes me very happy. He also took time in his speech to say,
I was just going to mention this,
yeah, he took time in his speech to say, instead of making one $200 million movie, maybe you should make 10 $20 million movies. Maybe you should make 20 $10 million movies, you know, to diversify the field a little bit and make some of these small budget, lovely films that frankly, like, they don't really make anymore. That's one of the first things we said about American Fiction. This is like the great, smart comedy, family ensemble comedy that they quote unquote don't make anymore.
Yeah.
And the solo award for Anatomy of a Fall came with their win for screenplay, which I think is very deserved. I gave like a little bit of shade to that film in our review for it being so ambiguous, but all of that ambiguity lies in the writing, and the writing is tremendous. Justine Triet, all of her films, I've seen a couple of her films since Anatomy of a Fall, and all of her films really toe this line of being satiric, but also dramas. They're almost satirizing our real modern lives, but doing it in a very dramatic, very intense way. So I really like the tone that she strikes. But anyway, I was really happy to see that rewarded, especially another Palme d'Or rewarded.
We were talking about the diversification of the awards, and there is one note that I have to make about that, because Poor Things did sweep a lot of these.
The early ones, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of these early awards, including Best Costume Design, Best Production Design, and Hair and Makeup. This was something I would have liked to see Barbie at least get one of these for. I think I would have liked to see either get Production Design or Costume Design. This is no shade against Poor Things, because the production design and the costume design and the hair and makeup, it's all absolutely wonderful in those films. To see it get all three, and I wish Barbie got a little bit more recognition in these areas.
Yeah, I agree. But something that's very interesting is the only win it had was for Best Original Song. But in my opinion, Barbie like dominated the ceremony. Like I felt like a lot of the ceremony was about Barbie, even though they weren't winning. There was a lot of call outs to Greta. People kept talking about Greta. The performances, people were on their feet, losing their minds in the theater, especially for I'm Just Ken.
Oh my gosh, that was absolutely insane.
I'm Just Ken was like an all-time Oscars moment in my opinion. I thought what's funny is like
they held that to the last performance because they knew that people are going to wait for it.
What's funny is like I don't really think Ryan Gosling can sing, but the performance was just like amazing. Like
I actually thought he did great. I thought he did great singing it.
Okay, whatever. But anyway, all of the
compared to his singing in La La Land, no shade to his singing in La La Land, but it was actually much better than that.
Low bar, but yes, the choreography and the whole performance and production of it, I thought was amazing. And they brought out their other actors. It was
Simu Liu was there.
It was just a great like celebration of this film year, which frankly was so dominated by Barbenheimer. In addition, the Billie Eilish performance.
The Billie Eilish performance was stunning, and I said this going into it that I was a little bit more excited for the I'm Just Ken performance because that was the first time we were all going to see it, where she has been performing this song nonstop. So obviously to us, it's like something I think we've seen throughout the award season many, many times already. But I loved how the stage turned and she was first facing everybody in the background, everybody in the audience. Also, on that note, that was the first time we were introduced to the orchestra's placement in the whole thing and how they moved them up into like the rafters behind the whole stage, which I thought was so cool. How that opened up multiple times during the ceremony. Great production design on that front.
What's interesting, I said this to you right after Billie Eilish performed, but I'm a Billie Eilish fan. You kind of appreciate her, but you're not as on board, right? Except for this song, you really like
this. This was one of my favorite songs of the year, and I'm so glad it won.
What I said to you is when you first heard Billie Eilish's first album, which I'm a huge fan of, you would never imagine her being as good of a singer as she is, and she really showed it off with her performances this year.
I watched this video once of her showing how she formed the way in which she sung the song. She was talking about how she could have done it so many different ways. Some of them were more strong and had different like vibrations in the vocal tones of her voice, and how she came to decide that this was how she was going to sing the song in this more light and wispy way that had so much more raw power to it. That was just so cool to see that, because it just shows the level of perfection that artistry goes in crafting a song like this and how it's supposed to fit into the movie itself.
I don't want to become Anthony Fantano or anything, but I always found her production choices to be really, really interesting, and especially the way she uses her voice both authentically and through like machines and the way that it's manufactured through her production. I always found just like really, really cool and really innovative.
I just loved how humble she is and how she wears what she wants, and she's just so herself. I think I would make a good point about that for the entirety of the telecast itself. There was a lot of individuality.
A lot of unconventional costumes and just people, like very different personalities. I showed a tweet to you halfway through that I thought was really funny about how everyone who worked on Poor Things kind of looks like Bellatrix Lestrange.
Oh, Bellatrix Lestrange.
Yeah. So everybody that worked on Poor Things looked like they worked on Poor Things.
On the note of how everybody looked in Poor Things, I have one note to make about that, and that is a shout out to the cinematographer of Oppenheimer and the sound designer for Zone of Interest. Their shoes were freaking amazing.
I wasn't thrilled with the category this year for cinematography, so I'd be interested if anyone has like an interesting thing to say about the cinematography in Oppenheimer in the comment section. I would love to hear it. Genuinely, like I don't think it's bad or anything, but it didn't stick out to me as one of the most amazing parts of the film. However, I am a big fan of that cinematographer. He shot Nope. He shot Her.
Oh wow.
Yeah, he has done Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. He has done some really amazing work. I'm very happy that he was rewarded for something.
See, this is your addition to Movie Husbands, is just the film knowledge, because I can't remember all these little details and specific information. That's why I was bad in my history class, because I could not remember dates. I could not remember names. So on other surprises of the night, I guess you could say Best Actress was a surprise. I think a lot of people predicted that Lily Gladstone was going to win because of her SAG award.
It was basically 50-50. So they both had Globes, but Emma had BAFTA and then Lily had SAG.
Yeah.
I thought that it would go Lily's direction because the momentum just seemed that way, in my opinion. So I was a little surprised that it was Emma Stone.
So Emma Stone wins. She looked just as surprised as everybody else. Oh gosh, the anxiety rating over her. I felt for her in that moment.
I do the same thing when I have anxiety to point out their flaws, and she's up on literally an Oscar stage talking about her dress and how it's breaking and don't look at my back. And I thought it was very funny and very sweet. I think I preferred her performance to Lily Gladstone's, but I think the world may be better if Lily Gladstone won. So that's kind of an interesting thing to think about. But anyway, I want to give a shout out to Emma Stone because she had a child recently. She hasn't been working as numerously as she was before. The two things she did this year were The Curse with Nathan Fielder, absolutely bizarre and very good, and another Yorgos Lanthimos film. I think we said this in our Poor Things review, but Emma Stone, for the star power that she has, using her star power for these really interesting projects.
She's doing some weird shit.
Yeah, I really give her credit for that. I think that's awesome. And to see it rewarded again, hopefully just gives her more power to go in those strange directions.
Completely agree. I think overall thoughts, I really enjoyed this telecast. Noticed last year that I thought they were getting back on track. The way they brought this back to personal connection and backed itself up to what we love and expect from film and from the telecast awarding films. I don't know what I'm saying. I don't know what I'm saying. No, I have to get this right, but I don't know what I'm saying.
I completely know what you mean. So I think the COVID era one had those personal connections, but it was just a poorly produced show. Whereas this one had the extravagance of a greatly produced show, but did have some of those personal connections that we look for in great Oscar speeches and great Oscar tributes.
But overall, I thought it was a great show and it was really exciting. Even though I think we went into a lot of it understanding who was going to win, there was a lot of set in stone things that seemed to be set in stone and weren't set in stone, except for Emma Stone, I guess. But that being said, I found it really enjoyable. I was hoping for that. I was like, okay, I know most of the winners are going to be what they are, but it was really cool to just enjoy the night.
Yeah, I agree. I thought it was a very fluid show. I thought it was very easy to watch and very entertaining to watch. I'm really anxious to see the ratings come out, and I know that like ratings don't happen while the telecast is going on. It's not like word is spreading that the Oscars are good this year and suddenly everybody turns it on. Yeah. But I hope the people that did turn it on found it to be an entertaining show, because I really did. As somebody that loves film, I still watch the Oscars sometimes and feel like the show drags or it's laborious in some way. But they did a very good job, I think, both highlighting films that I want the general audience to know about and also giving you that huge entertainment that you're looking for as like a mainstream audience, you know. So yeah. I actually thought it was a like abnormally good Oscars as far as the production was. Do you remember when Donna Noble...
This was a little unhinged.
Do you remember when Donna Noble had too much information in her brain and she was just like, Sal? That's kind of like how you do take sometimes.
Sorry, that's just how my brain operates, and there was a lot going on, and I tried to make notes that were in order, and I still get caught off guard with just the amount of information and stuff to think about and stuff I need to make sure I mention, and I probably missed something. And I feel bad if I missed something. If there was something that I missed, I really do apologize.
You're not allowed to go to bed until you edit this and then put it up.
That is not happening.
You're going to put it up.
I need to go to sleep.
You need to put it up at 2 a.m.
This is going to happen at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning when I start editing this.
It needs to be up at 8 a.m. tomorrow morning.
That is impossible. Do you really want me to stay up and do that?
I'll pay you $200.
We are married.
I'll pay you $200.
I take that money from you and it's just... What?
This is a Movie Husbands post-show Oscars.
And that's it for the special Movie Husbands post-show...
Oscar
what did we
extravaganza.
I don't remember.
The Oscar extravaganza.
This is the Oscar extravaganza. Let us know in the comments. What did you think about this year's Oscar telecast? As always, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.